education will lead, and education of Maldives will inspire other countries also. Now we have next speaker is Dr. Fernando. Yeah, Dr. Fernando Locra Castro. He's ambassador of the Republic of Costa Rica to the United States of America. He's our second speaker, and after that, our Anil Sahasrabudhe will be speaking at 10:30. So, Dr. Fernando Locra Castro presented his credential to the President Donald Trump on September 17, 2018, officially recognizing him as the ambassador of Republic of Costa Rica to the United States of America. Ambassador Locra Castro has long dedicated himself to serving Costa Rica through various capacities as a strong international experience in Europe, former Minister of Health and Stewardship of the Health and Nutrition and Sports sector in Costa Rica, and former executive president of the Costa Rican Social Security Fund, the most important healthcare provider in the region. He owns an advanced studies diploma in political economy from the Universidad Complutense de Madrid, and a master MSc in health policy planning and financing from the London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE, and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine of the University of London, and two master MA in healthcare management administration and health economics and pharmacoeconomics from the universities Pompeu Fabra UEF from the Barcelona. He trained as a medical doctor in Costa Rica and has worked as health policy advisor, medical and research manager as a primary care medical practitioner in Costa Rica and Spain, and as a registered medical disability analyst in United Kingdom. Given his extensive experience in financing healthcare services, developing social and health policy regulation, Locra intend to apply his knowledge uh, as he fulfill new role as ambassadors. And Locra currently reside in Washington DC, and with his wife and two children. Good morning to Dr. Fernando Locra, and please share your views.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Director Rawat. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in the morning in India. Good morning to everyone. But tonight here still in Washington, D.C. And also thanks to the mentors for inviting me to speak about this very important subject. Costa Rica's education level, it's not something casual, but the result of a history of commitment with basic education that has been growing and straight during the almost 200 years of independence life so far. Recently, our country has become a member of the OECD organization. And in one of their reports, they have found that Costa Rica ranks fifth out of 36 participating countries in adult with tertiary education participating in formal education. For Costa Rica, it has been a long journey. During colonial times, Costa Rica was the farthest south province of the New Spain Viceroyalty, and it was also the poorest and the most neglected. So it lacked the resources to improve educational opportunities for its inhabitants that had to travel north to get an education. After the independence in 1821, the following government tried to improve education. Between 1832 and 1842, the first program to create a school in every district begins, and resources were allocated to start building them. In 1858, primary education became free and mandatory for every boy between 7 and 12 years. And the Constitution of 1869 makes it also mandatory for girls, measuring that has lasting impact in Costa Rican society. That was 152 years ago. Although there were a couple of high schools in Cartago and San Jose, the most important cities in our country, it was in 1874 that the first modern high school, the National Institute, was created, followed in 1887 by the Liceo de Costa Rica, Costa Rica's high school for boys, and in 1888, the Colegio Superior de Señoritas, which is the high school for girls. All of these are incredibly positive developments for the times and the realities of that region back then. During the first decade of the 20th century, there were several reforms to have a more modern education system separated from religious education, but still a lack of resources was notorious, even as the country started to have a stronger economy as a result of coffee exports. In education matters, the big lap for Costa Rica was the new constitution in 1948 that abolished the army and allowed the vote more funding to health and education in general. The constitution, the same that Costa Rica still has, also made secondary education free and established as a constitutional mandate the obligation of appropriating in the national budget at least 6% of the gross domestic product to education. This made a huge difference, and the percentage was increased to 8% in 2011, recently. Costa Rica is roughly 19,000 square miles, but we have more than 4,000 schools, of which approximately 8% are privately owned. Primary and secondary education is free and compulsory for the first two cycles. Higher education, what the OECD defines as tertiary education, is virtually free, and especially so for low-income families. Costa Rica has been working since the 60s in developing a strong technical education system, creating the National Institute of Learning in 1965 as the main institution responsible for providing technical education to Costa Rica workers, and second, through the creation and expansion of the technical and professional schools of the Ministry of Education. These technical schools, in addition to providing the appropriate academic training and the high school diploma, allows the student to specialize in a technical area of his or her choice and receive a mid-level technician degree. This requires an additional year of study compared to the regular high education system. In Costa Rica, technical education is recognized as key contributor to both economic development and social cohesion. There is a consensus among stakeholders that more skilled technicians are required by the industry, while these jobs are attractive and many enhance social mobility and cohesion. Also, an adequately skilled labor force supports the attraction of foreign direct investments, while it improves the level of productivity and competitiveness of the country. In general, INA provides vocational technical training for Costa Ricans over the age of 15 years, independent of their educational level in all sectors of the economy, to create jobs, improve living conditions, and stimulate economy and social development. On the technical side of secondary education, the curriculum for the third cycle of the technical schools from the 7th to 9th year, along with the academic subject, includes 2 exploratory workshops in each grade. These workshops allow students to choose a specialization among the 3 existing areas: agriculture and livestock industry, or trade and services. In 2014, the curricula of the 42 existing technical specializations in technical high schools were adapted. At the same time, 13 new specializations were created, including many in computer sciences. To improve students' knowledge of English, the bilingual version of some existing specialization was additionally created upon the request of the business sector. In total, there are 55 specializations offered nationwide: agriculture, in livestock, industrial, trade, and services. And we are happy about the results according to data from the National Household Survey. Workers who graduate from technical schools earn, when they started to work, an income that is 11.5% higher than the graduates of regular academic schools. Finally, last August, a new law or a specific act was approved creating dual system in technical education. This dual education system, inspired by the one that already exists in Germany, combines the traditional technical education with apprenticeships in a private company during the last year of high school. During the discussion before the approval, the input of many stakeholders was taken into account or consideration, in particular private companies and the government agencies in charge of regulating the labor market. This new system is still in the early implementation phases, but I think is promising in terms of enhancing works place learning and the increase the opportunities for students to find a job in their specific technical fields where experience in high value. This long tradition of commitment to education, which was a key factor in the development and stability of our country during the conflicts that affected the region in the 20th century, is stronger now than ever, and that explains the level of education accomplished we have achieved, and that the OECD was recognized in its education reports. For example, Costa Rica ranks high above OECD average in early childhood and primary education enrollment rates, 5th in Latin America. In sciences performance level in the PISA test, was above OECD average in secondary education enrollment rates. The effect also shows in the human capital of the country, since Costa Rica ranks 2nd in Latin America region, only after Chile, according with the World Bank Index. Nevertheless, Costa Rica still has a lot to do to improve its education system in regards to reducing these factors that cause high school dropout rates we still have, and tertiary education enrollment, and providing the education that is required by the labor market to increase employment opportunities. In short, I can say that the key ingredients for Costa Rica's achievement in education are long-term investment in all levels of educations, both for boys and girls, including the formation of teachers and clear understanding of the importance that education has in keeping peace, social justice, and democracy in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for taking time for us at 1 a.m. morning at Washington, D.C. and sharing the inspiring story of Costa Rica education. Now, I'm sure that our next speaker, Anil Sahasrabudhe will be useful to your country, and they do a lot of things in technical education. And I'm sure that we'll connect you to share your views and let the India can be useful to Costa Rica, especially in technical education. So thank you so much for sharing time for us and sharing your great views, inspiring views. Thank you, doctor. Yes. Thank you. Now, Anil Sahasrabudhe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should I start?
Yes, sir. Just welcome. Okay.
But be brief about introduction.
Yes, sir. I'll just do. Yeah. Yes, sir. So now our next speaker, Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe ji, is a professor of mechanical engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Guwahati, and currently chairman of All India Council of Technical Education. Professor Anil D. Sahasrabudhe has held several important academic research and administrative positions at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Tata Consulting Engineers, Northeastern Regional Institute of Science and Technology, Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh, and IIT Guwahati. He also served as Director, College of Engineering, Pune, since 2006 on deputation from IIT Guwahati. Prior to joining at AICT chairman and as an academician and researcher in NERIST and IIT
You
Guwahati,
have been going long.
and administrator in the capacity of director COEP. He has taken the several new initiatives for academic circulars and co-circular activities, entrepreneurship research, and good governance. Dr. Sahasrabudhe is proud of India, and he's a great son of India. He's serving the India's National Technical Institute administrative body. I'm sure that his views will inspire us. Dr. Sahasrabudhe.
Yeah. Good morning. Namaskar to all of you, right from the US, beyond midnight to early morning to late morning. So very happy morning to all of you. This is very interesting that transformation in education, in particular, story of India's technical curriculum transformation that has happened, I would like to share. But in general, I was listening carefully to Dr. Abdullah Rashid, Minister of State Education, Republic of Maldives, and I was highly impressed by the thought process that he had put in. Same way, Dr. Fernando Castro, the ambassador of Costa Rica to US, he also narrated the story of Costa Rica. I think we are all having common thread. India with an ancient civilization, with the first universities of the world, whether it is Takshila, Nalanda started here. Even prior to that, Gurukula system was in existence here. So there is a lot to learn from ancient India itself. Plus, when we have gone ahead and a lot of modern activities have happened all over the Western world, we need to take that as well. So we cannot be only basking in the old glory, but learn from the past as well as from the present and look for the 21st century. And as rightly pointed out Dr. Abdullah, very, very interestingly, what all I wanted to say, he has already said, everything. In fact, I was highly impressed because we have so much common in thinking. I will narrate only a few examples, and then later, if there is a possibility, there can be question answer. We can also talk about if there are any issues people can ask. Now we are at a crossroad in India. We have a new national education policy. Since independence for 70 years, we had two policies. After 36 years, we have a new policy. This policy has many new facets, a lot of innovations, a lot of transformation that is going to happen in the next few years. And with that, and what AICTE, the technical regulator in technical education, has been doing in the last 3 years already, which is almost in alignment with the new national education policy and how we can forge ahead, which is related with Dr. Abdullah. Whatever he said has absolute strong relationship. Number one, the education starts actually from home. The first, the teacher is mother, the family, the parents, brothers, sisters, relatives. And then a child comes to a school. The schooling system has been changed from the present. Now I see, I've been asking this question whether Major Harsh has joined. He has joined. And therefore, I will not focus on now school education, but he will be anyway covering it. Since I had not seen him, I was trying to go from primary education, so I will skip that. So the education at the primary level is, instead of 10 plus 2, it is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. It will be explained by, Major, so I will leave it. When it comes to higher education, a well-prepared mind, when it comes to higher education, with all those facets which were 3 L's, there were 5 P's and 3 R's, all being taken in, that student, when he comes, our job is very, very easy at the higher education level. But that preparation at the school level till grade 12 is very, very significant and important. I'm sure Major Harsh will cover that. Now, coming to higher education, all the time, whenever a student comes to higher education, one question which that child comes and asks us is, what would be the outcome after my graduation? Will I get a job? What will be the employment opportunity? Where do I do what? And that is the concern of the parents, because most of them are first generation learners. Please remember, India started with a gross enrollment ratio of as low as 0.7% at the time of independence, and today we are at 27. And we have to go a long way to 50% in the next 15 years. So natural question is, after this graduation of 3 years, 4 years, whether it is art, commerce, science, or engineering, or art, medicine, or law, whatever, what will I get it? That is the major question in the minds. And therefore, they are all worried all the time. So we have to free them of all of that. Education is for empowerment. Education is meant for your creativity to blossom. And therefore, the entire processes that we do, the curriculum, the way we design, has to take care of all of this and build confidence in our students. And not keep asking, what will I do? Someone can become a painter, music director, someone can be in the film, someone can be in the art field, someone can be in the commerce, banking, insurance, someone can do engineering, someone can do architectural work, someone can do medicine and law. So there are hundreds and thousands of opportunities that galore. But do I get myself prepared for all of that? And that is where the entire curriculum has to be designed. And therefore, we start with, in our curriculum, a very important activity, which is student induction program. Many people here who are listening, probably some of them know, some of them who do not know must actually attend that program, which we do it for faculty members of 1 week duration, called Universal Human Values Program. The values which exist as far as the human beings, the Homo sapiens are concerned, they are the same. Whether it is in Costa Rica, whether it is in, in Maldives, whether it is in India or anywhere in the world. So those basic ethics, values, which was also narrated, whether it is in terms of honesty, integrity, caring, empathy, all of that, how do we build it, and concern for the environment, that starts at the higher education level in the first 3 weeks of the college days, when there is no curriculum. There is only very various types of activities, ranging from getting up in the morning, going to the sports field, doing exercise, yoga, a lot of sports, come back after bath and all that, breakfast, a lot of debating, discussion sessions, a lot of activities where you start creating empathy. You understand each other. What we said, collaboration. What I do not know, he knows, and what he knows, I do not know, realization, self-reflection, introspection, and thereby creating empathy for every human being, not only human being, but animal world, the nature, the environment, the plant species, everyone. Thereafter, understanding the campus, surroundings, industry, some of the very interesting, geographically important, historically important places in and around the college. So you basically get them connected. You should feel that the education is lovely. It is engaging. It is going to be pleasant. When we bring all these values into students, the next 3-4 years that a student is there, he will not be trouble creator, but he will be a problem solver for the institute as well. A connect between a student and the teacher. We have this program where every 20 students are associated with one teacher. So that teacher becomes automatically guide, philosopher, etc. for that set of students, and they have bonhomie developed. They do very well together for the next 3-4 years. Next comes the employability aspect, and therefore internship is important. In the curriculum, we may have so many topics, number of credits. Sky is the limit. You take any discipline, probably there can be even 300 credit degree program. There is no use. What you need to do is open up, opportunities in self-learning. What Dr. Abdullah rightly said, that we can't cover everything. You just uncover a few important foundational basic subjects and give such knowledge to him that he can on his own also start learning. And many times our students as well as faculty mistake what is available on YouTube, Google, etc., which is information, as itself the knowledge. And therefore there is a role of teacher. So teacher is not to be replaced by Google. Google can only help you to a great extent. A lot of information will be available. How do you distill that information into knowledge? How that knowledge is converted into wisdom? How that wisdom is to be converted into applications and make use for the societal good? All of that, from the student induction program, universal human values program, to internship program, to teacher certification program. We have a 8-module faculty certification program. The entire life cycle of the teacher, right from curriculum development to teaching learning process, use of technologies, the examination reforms. Examinations cannot be based on only rote learning. Someone who remembers and then omits it in the examination, getting maximum marks, is totally useless. If you are asking him, why did this happen? How is it coming in? Where do you apply it? And many times they are all blank. And therefore, understanding, creativity, application of mind, critical thinking, analytical ability, problem solving ability, creativity, these are the important things. How do we bring them in our examination papers? That is another series of workshops that we are holding all along in this particular, AICT's 10-point mandate for improvement in the technical education or transformation education. So starting with students, faculty training, and new courses which are emerging like AI, IoT, machine learning, deep learning, robotics, 3D printing, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain, cloud computing, cyber security, so important. How do you get faculty trained in all of those? So we had 950 programs conducted in pandemic, each program attended by 200 to 300 faculty. We have trained 1,12,000 faculty, and another 100 programs are on the cards, and they will train another 30,000. So 1,50,000 faculty will be trained in this. And these are the things which will really transform the technical education. And since in the values are also embedded, values, ethics, honesty, integrity as important as the actual curriculum, application of that through internship, going to the industry, going to the startup, going to the villages, going to the remote areas. What are the challenges that the society faces, and how through innovation, through entrepreneurship, through creating startups, we can create jobs rather than only keeping on seeking jobs. I think that is all what the India's new technical curriculum in terms of the new national education policy, which has been enunciated, has started off. And I'm sure many of you who are from different countries, if they want to make use of, please watch our AICT website, all these training programs. Many of these videos are all available. Any country of the world can make use of the teacher certification program, internship program, our human values program, Atal Academy programs, and the concept of Bharat, that is India, from the ancient times, has been Sanskrit words, Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. We want the whole world to be happy. We are never happy with ourselves being happy. We want the whole world to be happy, because we consider Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. And today United Nations also talks about Mother Earth. We are all sons and daughters of that Mother Earth. We also talk about environment today. We also talk about sustainable development goals, 17 of them, right from education to economy to all of those. And that is what empowerment has to happen through education. And our one of the great sages, Swami Vivekananda, when he went to Chicago and addressed the World Council of Religions, he had said there also and many times that education is nothing but manifestation of perfection already in man. You have to bring it out. And therefore, the role of the teacher is important. How you identify what talent which student has, and how do you mentor him or her, how do you take it forward, how you make that student to blossom and achieve excellence which is already inherent in her or him. I think that is what is education, and our curriculum, our delivery, our teaching learning processes have to be oriented towards this. With this, I conclude. And if there are any queries, questions, I'm willing to take it. But I have parallel processing. I have become multitasker. Three activities are going on. I'm going somewhere there, sometime coming back here, and I'm very thankful to the entire the organizers. You know, so important that you have been talking about all the time. Green, green, green. So green is the next future. Actually,
Right.
with that I conclude. Namaskar.
So thank you very much, sir, for inspiring words.